Happy Easter Monday, oh, Dr. O.
Happy Easter Monday, ma'am.
Hi, Madam CEO.
So, welcome to Medical Mondays with Dr. O. Welcome. Today, we continue with our panel. If I can get there we go. Today, we continue with our panel. I am Dr. Toyin Okwesomi. I'm a family practitioner, HIV specialist, and I treat addictions in Baltimore, Laurel, and Landover, Maryland. My passion is for us to be educated, to get the right education, and to encourage and empower each other when it comes to medically related issues in all dimensions. We have been talking about mental health, depression, suicide, and racial disparities. And we focused on parenting. What leads to this? What can we do? What have we done in the past that could be issues that lead to mental health in children when they are being brought up? What can be done to prevent these incidents and accidents? So that's the discussion we've been having. And we have our phenomenal panelists return today. And I thank every single one of them for making the time to come. I'm gonna have each panelist give us their opening statement in 5 minutes. And today, I'm going to start with Dr. Veronica Ufoegbune. I'm going to have each one introduce themselves. So if you please unmute and introduce yourself, that would be fantastic.
All right, Dr. O, you did it. You are officially a queen in Iseluku Kingdom.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you again for the platform to engage and for me to as well learn, because we are lifelong learners. You can't teach if you can't learn. So I'm here to absorb and to share what I know and to learn more from others. My name is Dr. Veronica Ufoegbune, and I've been in the field of education for 37 years. And right now I am CEO for engaging and I would say critical thinking apps to help children learn to read and also to acquire knowledge, as well as a professor adjunct at Mills College and Chabot Community Colleges, as well as being the executive director of a nonprofit that's state subsidized for learning in Berkeley, and the host of other things. And really important connection to Dr. O is that I'm the chair for NAPAC California, and we do a whole lot together, and including all of many of us. So I look forward to tackling this very intriguing and emerging topic. It doesn't look like it has an end, it's infinity, but we'll do our best. Thank you.
Go ahead, give your 5-minute spiel.
Oh, I can do that now?
Thank you. Yes, please. Introduce yourself and then, give us your introduction.
Absolutely. So the topic again is a continuum from prior. And let me go to my first so I can make sure we're flowing nicely. And I'll try to make the 5 minutes. I'll talk as fast and as comprehensible as I can. So yay, Mondays with Dr. O. So part 3 for me is raising children in this digital age with so much information on the information highway. So it's, again, depression, suicide, racial disparities, and I would say less abusive excuses and bias to it. And I'll tackle that. And the panel, they'll introduce themselves. So I would save a couple minutes by going straight to active listening. We talked about different topics, but I wanted to highlight active listening. The active listening is not just say, yes, I heard you. It's about really listening for meaning, and really listening with the hope to address social emotional. Social emotional means that you may have missed some of those critical points. For example, if you're on the freeway and you're honking people, there was some social emotional that you've missed that can be addressed. And how are we solidifying that foundation for children? How are we helping them fix that? Because that foundation is part of Maslow's law, meeting your mental health, social emotional need. Social media impact. How do we deal with the impact, the issues that occur? Do you have conversations with your children? Do you listen, or are you Mrs. Know-it-all or Mr. Know-it-all? Creating time to talk with our children and each other. Who are the friends of your children? If you're studying when they're 18, it's a little late. You might need extra help. You start listening to them from when they're 1 year old and 2 year olds and having conversation. If you suddenly want to go in their room when they're 17, it's going to be strange. But if you've been going to their room since they were 1 year old, then you can go in when they're 18. You can have conversations. You can create that relationship. What is in their wallet? What's in their backpack? What's in their pocket? If you started early, then you may not need to go into their wallet when they're older. So again, if you've missed it with your children, we now, this generation, have an opportunity with our second generation. What is the school curriculum? How do you connect? How are you engaged? Are you too busy working double shift? Or do you take time to know what's happening in your child's curriculum? It's critical. You do not need to be an expert, but you need to ask questions. You need to set goals with your children. You need to find out what's going on. Again, I'm saying this to those who have raised children that are older and those who have children that are now creating new families. So whatever you get in a Monday, Dr. O, share with your family. Share knowledge, because there's a lot of good stuff here. Guidance and counseling, fear role modeling. So we are guides and we are counselors for our first guide and first counselors for our children. If we have played that role, then we have created opportunity for solid foundation on their social emotional and learning how to guide versus fear. And I'll go into that later in more detail. And encouragement, not condemnation. It's borderline abusive sometimes the way that we were raised and we turned out okay. But in this community, because of where they have to grow up in, when we don't encourage and we condemn and we say, look at your friend, how come you're not like your friend? Look at your big brother, look at your little brother. It should not be condemnation, but listening, because people are different. And again, and when we create abuse, we're creating depression path. We're creating social emotional despair. And we need to also know the difference. Let's reference the last session. What does discipline mean? Discipline, that's the way a lot of people were raised, is punishment. And punishment can have borderline abusiveness in nature or abuse in nature. So again, I'll get to that. I just want to highlight a lot of things because we have 5 minutes. And then the conversation continues. Parents, adults, whether you like it or not, you are an emergent role model for your child. So we have to address what we say, what we do, how we do it. We need to learn, because whatever we do is like the rain. It rains on your children and we're leaving residual impact. Critical to this conversation is defining discipline. What's discipline? Well, it's the practice of training people to obey rules, right? Or a code of behavior, or using punishment to correct disobedience, quote unquote, a lack of proper parental and school discipline. Well, really digging into discipline, I want to remind us, it's following. And it's really that you are retraining people to remember how to conduct themselves in a situation, or they never knew it, so you're creating that learning for them, or you're just having them practice so they can remember. So if you start thinking of discipline as teaching, then you will stop punishing, because teaching means you have to give rationale. You have to help people understand, because when they understand, then you're not there to always show them. Of course, we all know we shouldn't do 75 in a 60 zone, we do. So what do? You have consequences. And that's the same thing with children. And guess what? When they know that the consequences will be applied, people slow down. So you just have to think of discipline that way, that is teaching. And what is guidance is that you guide people by creating atmosphere to help them be successful. That includes information, includes creating systems that work in your home, and also being inclusive. Because if people don't understand and they're not part of it, and you have to create and tell them all the time, then you have to constantly tell them. But when you engage them in their own life and skills, then they will learn. And then when they repeat and practice, so you never get tired of saying, okay, let's go over that again. Okay, so you need an ample amount of patience. The advice or information aimed at resolving a problem, difficulty, especially given by someone in authority, which is mom and dad. But from authority is really important. Your parents and children are not friends. You're friendly to your children, you're loving and caring, but we have to let their friends be their friends and you be the parent. We're not saying you should be enemy, but you're not friends. Let's not confuse that. They need your authority to be safe, to feel secure. How do you listen? What do we say to children? What do we do? How do we blame the victim? Do we constantly blame victim, or do we try to reason? And for example, there's a whole lot of craziness going on at home now with a very popular person who died from quote unquote alleged abuse. Now, when we really look at abuse of women and why they stay in their union, it takes us back to how do we deal with children and blame them. When you blame the victim, for example, women would stay in marriages even when they're going to get killed because the society frowns at single women. It frowns at a single woman with children. So we're part of the problem. And therefore, think of that with your children. When there's issues, we are part of that package. So you have to go back and say, what should we do differently? Or today that we're all discussing it from last week and so on, that we begin to look at how we blame victims. How do we create atmosphere that keeps people doing what they do? Am I going out of time?
Yes,
Okay.
you are already up to time.
So I better go do a quick scan then.
No, you come back to this.
Okay, so I'll stop
Hold it there, and I'm going to bring you back to this.
All right, then.
Okay.
It sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so very much. And I'm going to leave my remarks also for later. And I'm calling on attorney, pastor, my honorable brother, Pastor Bamidele Onigbinde. There you go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. I just want to say good evening to everyone. Thank you for coming. In the midst of so many wonderful people with very deep views and experiences about a subject like this, it's really hard not to feel humbled. But we all have to, our presence, our views, we are bringing to bear on this very important subject. And so we all have contribution. I mean, I think we need to understand that. Well, like Dr. O has already mentioned my name to you, I'm a pastor by calling, I'm a lawyer by vocation. I've been a lawyer now for, I think, about 30 years now. That is more than half of my age. But all of that to say that, it's also that I'm also a parent, and a parent of three young adults and a child. And so I'm bringing all kind of perspectives to bear upon this very important subject. We all, if we are parents, what I can also say is that there was a time when we were being parented. We have parents, whether they are alive or they have passed. And so there was a time when you actually are in the hands of people who are, either trying to guide you or they left you alone. And here you are. Now you are parents. And now you have children. Well, whether you learn something from your parents or you have nothing to learn, and sometimes it's our learning may be to say, no, I won't parent my child like my parents parented me. Or you may say, oh, I took away something good from, how my parents did a job. And I'm going to bring that to bear on how I parent my, my children. I mean, it's all of these are possibilities. But, it's really important for us to know that parenting is, it's almost like something you can't really wrap your hand fully around it, but you can really take a depth and, make a contribution from, what particularly if you're a parent. And so we can learn and we can also teach people, enlighten people about what we know. And so I was just checking out something about parenting styles. And I found 4, and it really resonated with me. I mean, I was struck by what I found. And I think I also I added 1 to it, so making 5. And I found there are 4 parenting styles, that you can actually fit, not all of it, but what you can call, how people parent into these kind of modes. And the first one is permissive parenting. And it defines it as child-driven, rarely gives and enforces rules, overindulges the child to avoid conflict. That is how, permissive parenting is defined in my little research. And the second type of parenting that I found is neglectful parenting. And this one is uninvolved or absent, provides little nurture or guidance, indifferent to child's social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And now, I mean, you can start to imagine what kind of parents would do that. And you see all of these things flowing, right together. And then the third kind of parenting that I found was authoritative parenting. And authoritative parenting is defined as a parent that solves problems together with a child, sets clear rules and expectations, and opens communication and natural consequences. The fourth one that I found, I told you I'm going to add 1 to it. But the fourth kind of parenting that I found is authoritarian, and that is different from authoritative. Authoritarian is parent-driven, sets strict rules and punishment, and it has this one-way communication with little consideration of child's social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And then to that 4, and I believe it's not exhaustive, and I don't mean that if I had a 5th one to it, that it will exhaust what kind of parenting that we're going to come up with as we look into this subject. But the one that I had is what I call lawful parenting. And this is a parent that rears their children by the book. They pay attention to the law. What does the law say? If I do this to my child, the law say I can. And so even when I know it's good, I won't, because it's all law. I am lawful. And we know we're in a place where, a country of laws. But in my mind, I think about lawful parents, and I think about how if you are guided by the law in parenting, the law will not deliver you when your children fall into traps with the law. I don't know. As I was thinking about this, I remember, I don't know whether we all can remember there was a time when people were receiving anthrax in their mailboxes. I don't know whether you remember that time. And it was scary. You receive anthrax, you don't know whether to even, take mails out of the boxes. And FBI got to work, and, law enforcement began to look, who is this sending anthrax? This is I mean, if you touch this, you will die. If you steal it, you're going to die. And he ended up finding a young man who was a culprit. And I remember when he was arrested right beside his parents. And so he turned to the parents as they were putting handcuffs on his hand. And then he said, "Oh, Mom, is this what they do?" It's like, Mom, I mean, I can't believe this. Like, they're taking me away. You know, it's like, look, won't you do something? I mean, are you going to watch me as they're taking me away? Something like that. But you know what? As he was being towed away with all, handcuffs and all that, the parents, I don't know, I'm not judging. Whatever the parents did right or wrong, as he was being taken away, the parents could not do anything about it. So, look, if we want to follow the law, even in a place or a land where where we live, there's a country of law and everything else, I believe that we're going to face an irony that if our children, because we have followed the law and we have done whatever we want to do according to the book and all of that, and that is not to say we are suggesting we should be lawless, but I think there is also a middle ground to it. Because what I understand is that, if I parent my child by the law and I overlook everything else that I need to do to make him to turn out better, I will be, it will be a surprise. Because if he falls into anything, any law, any trouble with the law, or did anything wrong, or have any violation with the law, the law will call me. They will call me to come and do something. I'll be, starting with bail, getting a lawyer for him. In other words, you're not going to get help from the law that wants you to do everything by the law, or do everything by the book. And so, in other words, where I'm going tonight, as I yield the ground, is that I think we are going to have to look into what God says about, because God is the author of parenting. He is the one who created the child, and even the parents who have the children. Children are the heritage of the law. Amen. And so, in other words, we have to, I think the better place is to look into what the Word of God says. And I believe that is where we're going to find a balance about what we are supposed to do as parents, from the one who is the author of parents and also the one who gives children. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Wow. I noted those 5 points. So I'm going to go to Pastor Mrs. Mayowa Fawole. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Mayowa Fawole. I'm very grateful for the privilege to be here today to learn alongside wonderful panelists here. By the grace of God, I am a mother of 3 boys. I guess one of them is a young adult, I guess 2 of them are young adults. And the other one is almost an adult, he's 17. I am an educator. I've been an educator, I guess, all my life. So the issue, things of children, is something that is very, very personal to me. Maybe because, one, it took me some time to have children. Maybe that's why. So children are very, very precious to me. So when we're talking about parenting, I know we started this discussion last week, and today we are focusing on the new era parenting, as Dr. Ho said, is the topic for us today. So when we look at, so that means there has been a traditional era, and now there is a new era. So that means there is a old way of doing things, and now a new way of doing it. So you and I might want to kind of, I guess, reflect on our parenting style. I mean, our dear pastor just talked about different approaches to parenting, whether you are authoritarian or authoritative and the rest of them. What is our style? But before, I guess, even thinking about that, we can look at today, what is the difference between parenting, maybe a decade ago or century ago, or even during my grandparents, my mom, and now our own generation. What's the difference between parenting? We know that now, before, someone like my mother or my grandparents, they benefit from the communal parenting. There's a lot of togetherness, community based, that some of us were raised. But then when we think about our children these days, some of them will never hold a child until they have their own. Unlike some of us, uncles will come, aunties will come, and we will play with their children. Some of them will come to us and things like that. But maybe because of the culture or the part of the world where we are, some of our children are not opportune to that. Some of them are not opportune to, aunties, guide. So all they have is dad and mom, and they don't have that, grandparents, actually chiming into parenting, or even the neighbors. We all know the adage that say it takes a village to raise a child. But for some of our children, where is the village? And what is the village? So some of us, maybe our churches are filling into that as the village, maybe our places of worship, or maybe the community or the groups that we keep are filling in that gap. I guess that is something for us to think about. So when we're thinking about the parenting, that's one aspect of it to think about it. I know Dr. Aluya said something about mentoring last week, and that is where all those are essential, because those are big factor that impact or still impacting parenting or even upbringing of children. But when we think about that, and now we juxtapose that with the kind of parenting that we have now for maybe 21st century, if I can say that, parents are exhausted, overwhelmed, burnt out, because you have your own professional demand on top of the parenting that you have to do here, especially in diaspora. So, and our children are struggling because they don't have that we had, playing around with the children in the neighborhood. I don't know, depending on where we live, we all can imagine what type of opportunity is available to our kids to actually get out and play and, and things like that. And they don't have that. Some of them don't have that. I can't say all of them, but some of them do not have that. So parents now, today's or new era parents, now they have that challenge. They feel stuck, actually. And some of us will probably think, oh, maybe I'm doing it wrongly, because I'm not doing it the way my mom did it, or I can't do it the way she did, or the way my grandparent did it. So it's a whole lot of challenges that we are facing because we're looking at a new era. So I just want us to be able to juxtapose, both of them. And now, because of that, many parents, we are kind of approaching parenting from head instead of from the heart space, because it's kind of difficult for us, and so now most of us, we depend, because this is not what we see our parents do. This is not what we see our grandparents do. So now we rely on what the book says. And there is internet. There's tons of information for parents. So we go in there because we're more educated, these days than we were century ago, or even 5 decades ago. So we depend on that instead of actually parenting from the heart space. So, and also the academic demand on our children, especially here, I guess even anywhere in the world, actually, it's also another challenge or another factor that added to this. So our children, they have a lot on their plates. They have to do a lot of extracurricular activities. And we have to run here, we have to run there, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. So all those are the differences or what is causing or is requiring us to have a shift in the way we parent. So I was just thinking, what are some of the challenges that new era parents are facing? The first one is the family dynamics. We know that has changed dramatically. I do believe there is the research, I don't remember the name of the researchers on top of my head, but what the researchers are saying is that we have about 67% of children these days are being raised from a single family, compared to from a single parent, compared to like 98% even 20 years ago, just 20 years ago. So that's a big deal when we're thinking about parenting. So we have toxic relationships. Some of our children, even, if you're growing in a single family house, it doesn't mean that it's a bad place for you to grow, but evidently it has an impact compared to what we had before. And now some of us are in toxic relationships, just like Doctor just mentioned. Even those that are not that abusive or, that physically abusive, our children are hearing this and that emotional abuse that is going on in our homes. A lot of homes are not stable, these days, and that is impacting our children. So then we can talk. I'm sorry, I talk too much, right?
No, you don't.
I'm sorry.
You don't. It's just that, look, I'll tell you guys, we have an amazing panel. Each of you need a floor to just take, the subject. It's just that this subject is so important that we also need that diversity. So hold that thought, because you are going to be able to still share it. I just wanted those 5 minute, 5 minute intros, so we can give opportunity to everyone else to be able to ask their questions and, also give inputs. I'm going to turn to Professor Amadou Baba, properly known as Baba, Professor Amadou Baba Sengri. But students call him Baba. And I have to say that it's coming from the social aspect
yes.
of what we've been talking about. This is an amazing twist. So 5 minutes. Go on, Prof.
Thank you so much. Again, yes, my name is Professor Amadou Baba Sengri. I'm a professor of criminal justice and sociology. This is area, of course, and I teach forensic science and homeland security. This topic is actually very close to me because I teach a class called juvenile delinquency. So it's kind of deal with the young people and parenting. And so a lot of you have touched on that. Parenting is a challenge. It's becoming a challenge in today's world because back home, parenting, I don't remember my parents always wondering where I was, except they know I'm either in school, or I'm going to the river, or I'm going to herd goats. They already know where I was. Over here, you have the parenting is of looking into 3 dimensions. Now you have the parents who are trying their best to parent the children. And then we have the community dimension, and then we have the state dimension. So the state is actually interfering also, sometimes I say interfering with the parenting, because there seems to be this parenting guideline. So it's not like back home where you have free will to raise your children. So what goes on in today's parenting is that in parenting, there's an emotional aspect, the psychological support and everything there. Today, I think we see there's more, it becomes more like an instrumental parenting. When I say instrumental parenting, sometimes like, okay, I have physically me with my child, but there's no spiritual connection. That spiritual connection sometimes missing. Sometimes I use an example of in class when I teach, I use Freud. Freud is one of the psychologists that come up with the idea of a superego, whereby the moral values. And so I said to my students, so sometimes we have parenting that is I meet with my dad or meet them once a week because there's a state only allows you to meet and under supervision. That's physical one. There's then the spiritual aspect, I say, is the fact that you do things. The child does not do the wrong thing because they are spiritually connected with the parents and saying that if I did that, what would my parents think? Or I don't want to bring shame to my family and all those things. So that child has been raised with the understanding that they have connection, bonding, there's this social bonding with the parents. But the physical bonding is where I just buy things for my child. So, and some of this, people think that's parenting. So the parenting is kind of moving away, it will move away into what I call technological parenting, whereby it is more about buying, either just keep the door, go and watch TV in your room and that is it, and or go and just play with your Nintendo and the parents is out there. Or we have what I call daycare parenting nowadays. And everybody just drop the kids off and pick them up and then put them to bed the morning. So really there's no spiritual connection with the children anymore. So the children become very frustrated. So sometimes they tend to bond more with the daycare people, like they see them as the parents. We call it replacing parents. And so you wonder when the kids come home and he's having or she's having an attitude because he never meet you. He just see you, you are just there providing housing for them and food in the evening, but breakfast, lunch, he gets it from the daycare, right? So when he comes back home, he just dinner and then go to bed. Maybe sometimes dinner is just get McDonald's or Wendy's and then put them or what do you call it? Pizza. And that's it, just go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. So the child wants to communicate and you are busy saying, go to bed. Or, I mean, to be fair to the parents, you are also busy with your own assignment. Some of us bring our work home, right? So we are busy focusing and I don't know. So it's like the children become like I don't know how to put it, like, hey, you are bothering me, you know, go to your room, go to your room, go to your room. So this is creating a gap, you know, in terms of bonding between the children and the parents. So what the children do now, they go out and meet. When they go to school, they look for friends. And sometimes these friends are not good friends, but they bond with them. They hang out, they smoke, sometimes some of them smoke weed, but do some bad things. When the parents don't know much about that. Because if you ask a parent, every parent says, oh, my child is a good child, it's a good child. Until just like somebody said, the police come and arrest them, and then the person, what the hell? You know, I didn't know he was like that. What? Because he didn't really spend time to get to know your child. And some of them behave in that way because they are rebelling against the parent. They're trying to tell the parent that, look, you don't care about me, so don't try to tell me what to do or what not to do. So those kind of that's the challenge of parenting today. It's not like at home, whereby when you start working, you are more like independent. You know, you can walk and you walk to school, you walk to the backyard, you go and climb trees, you are always busy. Over here, the children are always, you have to be at your side or they are at daycare. You can so that kind of relationship is creating a lot of problem. And that's why these kids, sometimes they feel neglected by the parents, they become depressed, and that depression actually leads to either one, they start smoking, doing drugs, or alcohol, or two, they bond with kids that actually encourage them in this kind of suicide pop mentality. Sometimes suicide is not just something that I choose to do, but sometimes it could be a message that, or trying to make the parents feel guilty or to make somebody feel guilty. So absence of parenting, I think we are not, the technology and other things, and the daycare has taken away real parenting from our children.
From the parents.
Yes.
Thank you so very much. Really appreciate you. I'm going to bring Dr. Aluya, our own Dr. Aluya, up. I'm going to have you introduce yourself tonight, and you have 2 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead. Pressy, go ahead.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Sorry, I came in late because I had to run in between, the multiple things I was trying to do.
We didn't even know, so don't say anything.
Oh, okay. So I guess they didn't miss me that much then. Well, I mean, today is number 3 of the discussions we'll be having. Such an amazing discussion. The point that these things are really important to the essence of. Before I go there, I'm Nelson Aluya. I'm a pediatrician. I'm also an adult doctor, so I'm 2 doctors in one. Medicine and pediatrics trained, an assistant professor at Rutgers University, New Jersey Medical School. Also a parent and a medical advocate. On top of that, the great honor of being the president of the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee, NAPAC USA, which is the platform upon which we create that graceful platform to identify individuals with the capacity and the trust to lead. Because one of the things we're talking about here is creating children who eventually would lead. Because every child will lead at one point or the other, either in the home or the home where they grow up, or the home where they eventually begin to own and control, and the society upon which they live, and the general society, and even on the global scale. So NAPAC is trying to do that as well in the area of policies and politics. But that's my background. But then again, I'm passionate about what we're talking about today. And the essence is that these children that we're talking about are the future. They would carry on our inheritance. As for now, we're the custodians of those inheritance, but they eventually will carry it on. Like how some of you always hear me say that we may not always be able to prepare the future for our children, but with sure intent and strategic powers, we'll be able to prepare our children for the future. Now, a lot of us here are immigrants. Of course, we see some brothers and sisters who, whose ancestors came here 400 years ago. They're brothers and sisters, but we share a common thing of as parents and as Blacks, people of African descent, we raise up children in an environment here in the United States, except for those who are in Nigeria, they have their own peculiar problems as well. But we raise up children here in a society that is not very welcoming of the color that we carry. And that puts a whole lot of stress on top of that. Being Black is an issue, and raising up a Black child in an environment where, you begin to wonder, what is it I'm doing? How is this kid faring? How are they going to turn out to be like? The whole dynamics is so big and convoluting these days, to the point where we begin to think of a whole lot of things, socioeconomic, political, emotional, all of that together. And by the definition of a parent, is that person who is able to raise up a child, providing those things I called emotional, psychological, social, economic, financial, all of those, to provide those things for that individual, for them to turn out to be a decent, reasonable individual that's functional adequately in the society. But a whole lot of things fall out. Now, what does that mean for us as immigrants? Because as an immigrant, you face it's a double whammy, because you come in with your preconceived, ingrained notion and style into a society where things are spelled out in a different dynamics, in a different form. Now you begin to say, where do I go? Do I make my child conform to my rules and regulations and the style upon which I was brought up? Or do I begin to allow this child free hand and move on as much as they can? I know, I think it was my brother, Onigbinde, that sets, the different styles. I think he called about 4 or 5, but there are actually 7 as well. There's a free range style of parenting, and there's the permissive style of parenting, and then we hear of the helicopter style of parenting, which was really big not too long ago, that the Japanese or the Chinese, and the Indians do to their children. So, but where do we fall into any of this? How do we begin to raise our children where we can sit back and say, you know what, they are ready to take on the mantle of life? Because in all sincerity, life is beginning to get even more confusing, disturbing, complicated. Now, with technology put into this, and the technology for which a lot of us still don't even understand. I mean, if I ask you right now, how many of our parents know what blockchain is, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, 5G technology, MRA technology? These 5 things, some of you have heard me say, are the things that will affect the way you and I interact with one another and how we interact with our environment. 5G, AI, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cryptocurrency. How many of us know those things? But guess what? That's the future that these children will live in. If we don't know these things, how are we supposed to prepare these children for that kind of future? Because everybody else is preparing. What are we doing, especially if we are people of color? Now, adding that together with all that, now there's this whole free range, ideas and ideology that are coming out. When you talk about the LGBT agenda and the atheist agenda and liberation and freestyle of thinking, liberation, style, all of these things coming together, as compared to where does that fit into your religious agenda and religious inclination or persuasion? How do we begin to fit into this so it doesn't begin to cause rift and confusion? Now, I'll quote the Bible says, raise up a child upon which he will go, and when he's grown up, he will not depart from it. And in our local colloquial way, they say, look, now before Peking drives faster, you can only bear the child.
Big pigeon, I'll interpret. Go ahead. I can do that one too.
Right?
Go ahead.
Now fish will never dry, now you will be bent. You understand?
It's the fish that is not dried yet that you can bend, meaning that you can only train somebody who is young, right, and have been set in their ways.
Because once they've gotten to their own concrete way of thinking, it's hard to impact new stuff. The same thing that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You only teach it when it's still a baby. So all of that starts right from the beginning. And the whole context and the conundrum of being an African and being Black. And then guess what? Another issue, raising up these children where we sit at home and he comes in the house or she comes in the house, they have a white kid or Spanish kid coming in and say they want to be your in-law. These are some of the issues that parents are facing. Now, what does that mean as a parent in the modern age? Because those are issues that we must begin to think about, not just for today as well. As we grow old and raise children in our environment, we must begin to prepare our children also to see into the future what's most likely will come. And I'm sure I'll rest here and we'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I have questions. And before I ask, my first question, or maybe it may end up being my only one for tonight, depending on what we have. I want to say that where will we learn about this crypto, 5G, AI on Medical Mondays? We will. So stay tuned, because it's part of our growth, it's part of our education, and we will. Dr. Aluya, thank you so much for bringing that up. And before I even go on, I want to say also that I've had a lot of requests on talking about domestic violence, how it impacts the women. We all know, or most of us know, what just happened recently that is rocking our world. And so we will get to that. We still have this subject to tackle, and our children want to come on the forum. They want to be panelists. We've been talking about them in one way or the other. They want to talk to us too. And I think, we are eager to hear from them. The LGBTQ, somebody asked that we need to address that, and we will. So we have a lot coming on, and we will be learning together. So we've heard tonight that parents are role models. And I've always said it, that what parents do in moderation, children will do in excess. And thank you so much, Attorney and Pastor Onigbinde and Dr. Aluya, for these 7 pointers. So there is no book written for parenting that we can point to today and say, read this book and you got it all down. And there is no there's no one way that fits it all. Parenting differs because even the children we have in one household differ from one another. And one has to be sensitive to each child. And so how do one address this in parenting, in this new age, in this time of technology? How do you deal with this diversity, even in a family, and tackling all these technologies? We want to take that amongst our panelists.
I think I can give it a shot.
Thank you.
But I think, Dr. Aluya was talking about how, if you train a child, you can only train a child when the fish don't, if the fish is dry, you can't bend it. But I think, the word there is a child, which is to tell you that, you're not talking about, 18-year-old or 20-year-old or 25-year-old. It's still your child, but it's just like, you can't sit him down, tell him to come, you're going to church now, make your bed. He's on his own now. So I think there's something about, getting it done early, and then that time goes fast and all that. But now, coming to what, Dr. O, the question that Dr. O is also asking, is also actually in that particular scripture verse that Dr. Aluya alluded to. And, is that train up your child and in the way he should go. And when he's old, he will not depart from it. It actually means train up your child according to his bent. I mean, when you think about that word bent, in other words, you're actually dealing with the child. And if you have 2 children, they're not the same. Even if they come out of the same womb and they are twins and they are born on the same day, you'll be making a big mistake thinking that simply because they are twins that they have the same bent. So in other words, in training, you got to train, but you also need to watch the bent. Some children are introspective. Some are, they want you to know how they are feeling. And some don't want to go out. Some want to, go out, and so you can't just, it's not like one size fits, all head kind of thing. So, and I think that's why, as parents, we really have to be sensitive and be vigilant in the way we do the training of our children, and to pay attention to their bent. But in training, we have to train. Probably why that is the reason why parenting is a little daunting, because it probably would have been easier if I have 3 children and I can say go, and everybody will go. And you don't have one that you have to push a little bit, or that you have to coax or something like that. So it makes it a little daunting. The art of parenting becomes a little daunting, where that you have to change. When you're dealing with this child A is this is the way you train him, and now that is effective for him. But now with child B, If you think you can apply what you apply to child A to child B, it may not work. And then you become, why, don't you see your brother? Can't you see your sister? I mean, he's always on top of things. Well, this one is, different, and you have to see the difference. And so I think that's probably what I got to say.
Thank you so much.
One of the things also, I think the challenge today also is that the peer, because when the child leaves home and then they go to school, I think they meet their friends, their peers. It seems like today's generation, the child will always look at the car, you're just an old one, too traditional. So how do you reconcile that, the fact that I think they tend to listen more to their peers or gravitate towards their peers more than they do with you? So when you come home, they're telling them, well, this was like Dr. Aluya mentioned, he brings a white person, Spanish, hey, this is the person I'm going to marry, but you didn't expect that, because so the children there are raised more, it seems like by their peers more than the peer pressure, just wanting to belong. The child doesn't want to belong to you, they don't want to listen to you, but they have more fun with their friends, and those are the people that seem to raise them. And that's why it becomes a challenge to the parents today. Secondly, now it's difficult for some of us here who are all born in Nigeria, most of them are Nigerian. We are African trying to raise African American children. I think that's why we have to look at it. We are Africans. We're trying to raise African American children, and that is sometimes the conflict that we have. I was raised with strict, don't do it, and I tell you, don't do it. You start from the beginning, of course, but then they become African American, and now you have to deal with their mentality that I don't have to listen to you because I have the right not to listen to you. And if you bother me, I'm going to call the children's service on you. See, this is one of the problems that parents are facing today in the United States. So how do you, as some of the pastor and others, how do you reconcile that with
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you. I think starting early is the way to go. It's the only way. By the time a child gets to the teenage years, they listen more to their peers. You have to have trained them pre-teen, and they will remember. So that time they listen more to their peers is the teenage years. Please, we have to remember that.
Yes.
If you are parents and you've raised yours, which your job is never done anyway as a parent, you have the grandchildren. So we still have another opportunity to be able to sow into that. I can't wait till the young folks come. My children have agreed that they're coming on, because immediately after the program last week, one of them called me to call me out. And I thought that was fun. I'm not going to share that tonight. I'm going to have them share. So, but I think doing it, starting early is the key. Dr. V, kindly start this. Thank you.
Really, I know, great. So basically, I just want to wrap what you said. You can wrap things, but try to wrap it. Frederick Douglass said it all. He said, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Right. Especially, I shared Dr. Williams's view about racism and Dr. Adhd being a real roadblock. It's already difficult, challenging to apply all these parenting styles. Then we also have to fight the monster of society. And everything is legalized, illegal, moral justification to place roadblocks intentionally, which is called the systemic racism. So there's two different kinds of laws that apply to us and to others, for white and non-white. So we have to remember that we have a huge challenge ahead of us. because we're wading through just raising a strong child. But then we also have to raise these strong young men and women in a society where we have to help them see the realistic conundrum that they face, that they do not measure us and others in the same way. Simple process. Ukraine goes through a problem, the whole world goes to their rescue. Nigeria has been going through that, and all the African countries for years, and it's okay. In fact, they have supplied more ammunition to destroy. So we have to identify the real battle that we're fighting, and we have to bring it to the knowledge of our children. And that's the reason why CRT, critical race theory, is being fought, because it's telling the truth. It's saying we want to tell the history by ourselves. We want to retell the history and tell the truth about us. I don't want you to tell me the child of who I am. You need to ask me the child of who I am. And so that we are taking on our history, and we have to do it together. Whichever way, it's going to be a struggle. We're going to fight through all the biases and myths that are already in the way. But whichever way, we are starting to realize that it needs to be together. It's a non-white and a white. So it's a tumultuous task, but remember, we got to build them now. And a lot of us try the best we can with our children, but it's not lost yet. We need to still try to put some, but let's make sure we do not forget to teach the grandchildren what we're now realizing, because when we got here first, we were all confused with a lot of theories about why you can't do this or that, but we figured it out, and we need to band together and build a community. It's being created to break a community, and when you break a community, you begin to break the people. So we are realizing all that, how the formula for the inner city here is the formula for the African countries. Supply them guns, give them some theory, they'll hate each other and kill each other. Go into the inner city, supply them guns, create instability, take their men and put them in jail, put their boys in handcuffs, give them inferior education, and on and on and on. And so that, Dr. O, this conversation is long, it's a journey. So I can talk and talk, but so let me stop. I just wanted to make those cogent points.
Thank you. See, it's a deep conversation, and we are not going to rush through it. We are going to walk gently through it so that we can continue to learn. You said it right. But the community is even larger. Destroy a family, just destroy the family unit, and you will destroy a race. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it in the Black race here. Professor Baba asked the question, so, raising, or made the point, how do you raise children in a culture here that you don't know? That you're trying to raise children to be African Americans. I did not do that with mine. I didn't. I raised mine in what I knew. I took what is good in this culture and what is good in ours, and by the grace of God, through his strength, impacted them. And I'll say this, what do we really know of this culture when we first came? Not much. I didn't even know what prom was. And they said my son was going to go to prom. I need to do this, this, and that. A lot of things then, after my children graduated, led me to starting Nigerian Parents of Howard County to help Nigerian parents understand the high school system and to be able to navigate. Guess what? My son, my younger one, was the first Black president ever in his high school. And he had graduated. After him, we had 2 children in the Nigerian Parents of Howard County. The association has started, get on the school board, voted in. Because we empowered the children, we learned more about the high school culture that I did not know when my my Maroon sons were in high school. But I found out after they graduated and I decided every parent I know, and the ones that I don't know will be brought in by the ones I know to come learn. That's the way we learn. So it's better to teach our children the rights and the wrongs, and guess what? They will continue to walk in that path. Auntie Susan Oshifade.
Thank you. I think you are muted. With Dr. O.
Yeah, maybe we'll go to Madam Lara then.
Okay.
Oh, Auntie Susan Oshifade, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was saying you're muted, ma, and now you're muted again. Okay, I'm going to go to Madam VP from NAPAC. Great,
Yes.
you're muted, ma.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. O. This is a phenomenal panel. I've enjoyed every bit of wisdom they shared, and all the diverse perspective, which brings me to the conclusion that, there's no perfect parenting any more than there's a perfect child.
Mhm.
We must just continue to build relationship with them and to grow. I love what Dr. Adhd said, because you know what, so our children went through a whole lot of stuff that they probably even suppressed that we are not aware. The racism aspect of it is really deep, especially for male children and for female children also, especially if they're not light-skinned. There's so many multiple layers. So even a dry fish can be tenderly prepared without splitting into pieces. That is love and prayer. So we must not be naive about where we are, particularly all of us that, we strive in academics and God blesses us. Guess what? When we go and buy homes, we buy homes in white neighborhood. So our children go to white neighborhood schools. For most of us, not that that's not our intention, but that's what usually happens because we're looking for the best school system. And when you have to rate them, those are usually typically the best school system. So our children had to endure so many emotional stuff, that we probably don't even know. So, and even for us, because we have thick skin, there are so many things we have endured, like all the examples that Dr. O is given. So our community is time to rebuild. It is not too late to do all of this great stuff that all these phenomena people are sharing. Because you know what? 2020, 2021 revealed a lot about what's going on globally, mental health, which is what brought us to these issues, this discussion. So there's a whole lot. I'm not a professional in mental health, but I know that every parent wants to have better relationship with their children. And they have changing needs, they have changing personality. When they get married, their needs are different. When they start having children, their needs are different. When they're toddlers, their needs are different. So we cannot figure them out completely. So we must continue to learn in order to empower ourselves to do better. Thank you so much, Dr. O, for this opportunity and this panel. God bless.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for all you do, amongst our children and the adults. Thank you. That's what it is. It takes a village. And guess what? We still have that village here in our midst. We still do, because of us who have decided to stick together, to stay together, and continue to, assist each other in raising our children. Thank you so much.
Well, Dr. O, if I may say something,
please.
It's like Madam Lara just said. It's really complex, and there's no one size fits all, and there's no perfect mother, no perfect, child, no perfect father or top. But it takes a village to raise a child. But that's a notion that's been slowly, conveniently, and deliberately eroded in certain cultures, while other cultures have been allowed to move on as well. One of the things that's permanent, like they always say, is change. And that change comes with evolution. People evolve, and it's normal, standard, irrespective whether you're white, black, Jewish, Japanese, Christian, Muslims. People evolve, and social dynamics really change as well. In our end, and I've written this before, and I said, look, it is okay to be civilized, but you don't have to be westernized. They're two different things, and we must begin to understand that as well. If certain cultures can keep their culture, but understand the need to evolve as they move on, we also need to be able to do that. But for us to be able to do that, we must begin to create those guardrails that protect our family, that protect our homes, that protect our people. One of the things we must, Dr. O, you met the young man who you introduced to me in Washington, D.C., who's going to create an African center in D.C. And it's one of the things we really need, so that as people move in here, they begin to hear the things that will help people adjust. I've had the fortunate times of meeting very new immigrants, especially Nigerians when they come in. If I see a Nigerian name and oh my God, and then I go into all those questions, not just the fact that, oh, what's your headache? Give the prescription. No, because I tell them, if you succeed, it therefore means I have succeeded. If your child succeeds, it therefore means my community and my society and the future and the generation we're building here would also succeed. And we must begin to help interact and push them in certain directions that will help them, guide them. And one of the biggest issues as people come here is the issue of how to fit in. Some people don't have the papers. On the average, I often say this, for those who come here with papers and you're educated, it takes 5 years minimum for you to get into the system and adjust and begin to have a leg and walk quickly like everybody else. Now, if you don't have papers, Lord have mercy, we're talking about 15 years. That's how long it takes. And with what's going on right now in Nigeria, where you see a huge mass exodus of people moving from Nigeria, from Ghana, from everybody, relocating their families and relocating them here. Some of them come and they leave the wife and the children here, while the parents or the father is still back home. So these are another dynamics that we begin to see as well. Single mothers, they're not single mothers. They have husbands. But because the husband can't come here, he's 40, 50, he can't come here and start beginning to drive cab and whatever. He has a master and PhD back home. Why would he come and do here? But because of the dynamics and social structure and security back home and all the flair of coming to live abroad, the children, want to come here, and of course the wife wants to come here, and they come here and they live here. But guess what? Once they come here, she's basically a single mother, raising children in a society she barely truly understands or even know, coupled with the stress of having to deal with where they live, and then putting their feet on the ground. These are some of the issues that we'll begin to see, and it creates a whole lot of dynamics. And our kids adjust and adapt seriously and quicker than any of the older parents. So you find out that over time, it's the child who becomes the teenager or whatever, who's beginning to really direct the family and the mother on how things work here. It happens in the Spanish community. It happens in a French speaking community as well, where you now find out that the parents, who's supposed to be the parent, relies on the child who directs everything. How the heck are you going to tell that child what to do if they decide what to do, however they want to do it? You understand? And then God bless the poor man who is at home, is by himself as well. He's not a single man, all his family is over there, and he comes here on visit or vacation. And one of these people don't see as well again as the mother who's here, struggling, stressing over the issue, school, all that and all that and all that. And the man comes, what would I say? He's now a visiting husband. He comes in here over time. The concentration that most people tend to have is on the kids. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. Women tend to do that as well. You did not marry your husband because of your children. You married them because you love the husband. The children are outcomes of those relationships. They must begin to understand that. I've told them as well. They focus so much on the children to the point the man is now an innocent bystander. He sits and watch. And in society, I'm being frank.
Dr. Aluya.
No, I'm being frank. He's an innocent bystander. He sits there in a society where we know that the women rule. I'm being frank. Coming with an African mentality of a man, and there's a demand. There's huge demand. We need to build a mansion back home, but we also need to live here. We need to take care of our families and all that issues. We also live here. And the financial burden and stress all coupled together, before you know it, it begins to cause a strain on the relationship of the husband and the wife. And guess what? The children see those things. And they begin to see how helpless in a society that their parents, who they value and look so highly, is. The parents have become helpless. And the demand and the pressure that they're going through. And before you know it, they begin to scatter. But by God's grace, for those who stay together, and the concentration is usually the kids, it becomes a focus and a point center of the relationship. When those children leave, they grow and they leave. Then the parents begin to say, oh, we don't really know each other. And it happens. You see people who are married for 20, 30 years, all of a sudden they begin to go separate ways and divorcing. These are issues we'll begin to see here in our society as well. And what does that put us into place? Now, the other aspect that I talked about, the visiting husband. The husband comes, he doesn't know his wife anymore, right? Or even the ones who live here, and the man is old. Most men, I'm being frank, once you get to a certain age, want to move back home. They don't want to live here. They want to move back home. But a lot of the women don't want to move back home. I see that all the time. I've had to cancel. A lot of men will not talk to their wives at home. They may talk to their husband, to the physician who they feel is a friend, and say, dude, I want to go back home. But my wife, and I tell them, like, listen, if you want to prepare, you have to sit and have a discussion. I have all of this, the process. You find out that now, those who live there for 40, 50 years, they're moving back home and they're leaving their families here. And the women, of course, are doing omogo, for those who understand what I mean. They're taking care of the grandkids. So they're taking care of the grandkids. The man cannot do that. He can't do omogo. So what choice does he have to? He has to move back home. And if he's here,
Dr. Another topic, double standard of parenting.
No. But guess what? You see, these are some of the issues that we must begin to really sit down and face. Men don't talk, but they're eating up a whole lot of pain. A whole lot of pain.
Dr. Aluya.
So
Dr. Aluya.
Yes.
That topic, double standard of parenting, be ready and then come make your point. Because guess what? Madam VP is coming on and we're gonna address it. We believe, and I'm taking the stance of women, that you men are the head, but we are the neck that moves that head. You see that?
Dr. O, I'll tell you this.
We are the neck that moves that head. We don't agree with a lot of things you
understand that. How many women these days, especially in the modern age mothers, understand that?
Actually,
they don't understand that.
Guess what? They actually understand it, but some don't know how to use that power and take it to levels and dimensions they shouldn't. A woman with wisdom knows that her husband is her head. She can move that head. She can make you do anything, but she should make you feel she should make you still feel empowered and make you still know that you are in charge. When she's
I'll tell you one thing.
I think the society.
Dr. V alluded to it, and it's very strange.
It's
very pertinent. I'll tell you why. In a society here where there's a systemic deliberate, intentional system of subjugating the man in this society. It was done for a purpose.
Especially with
and they do that to continue to keep the Black race down.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dr. Aluya,
way back in the, but no, let me
Dr. Aluya, destroy the family structure and you destroy a race.
exactly.
Yeah.
Take away the man as the head of the family, you've destroyed the family.
So
that's the bottom line.
Right. So, but then guess what? See what the outcome of those ones are. Since the men are in jail, since the men have been subdued and subjugated, since the men have been killed and emotionally castrated, what did the women have to do? They have to come out and go fend for the family.
And there's no time for the children.
And there's no
because
time
we need
for the
to bring it back to the
but see,
children.
in the process of doing that, right? In the process of doing that, what comes up when you begin to have economic power? You have to have boldness come up as well. Authority comes in as well, to a point where even in the house, sometimes as you gain authority and leadership in the outside, when you come home, some women don't know how to dial it down. They still keep that.
And you know what? That is why it's a subject that needs to be addressed.
Right.
Dr. Aluya, some of us do marriage counseling, and this is what we talk about. Everybody needs to know their place.
I think this issue has been a consistent, what Dr. Aluya said, with the Black community and those history of race relations. I think there was this guy called Willie Lynch, whereby he find a way to destroy the Black family is to pinch the Black woman against the Black man. And I think that's what Aluya is saying. And so it becomes, just like you said, when you destroy the family, then you destroy the whole community. And that's what is going on today.
Because the system, the
Yeah.
Black woman is not a threat to them.
Exactly.
Woman, look,
It's not a threat.
even in their own society, you know how when did women have what do you call it? Voting suffrage here? So they consistently subjugated their own women as well. So in a system where the Black woman is not a threat to them, it's easy to promote the Black woman or give that Black woman a representation that gives them what? That's kind of satisfaction that they find. You hear what they call now. What did they say? Is it double or triple, what do you call it? Privilege, you're Black, you're female. So you have a double representation. So in a company, if you want to take minority.
Dr. O, this is another subject. Don't let
exactly Dr. Aluya
run away.
Dr. Aluya.
No,
Dr. Aluya. Dr. Aluya, you've got to stop. You've got to stop.
This is important.
No, it's a different subject.
I'll tell you why it's important.
Okay.
It's important because it boils down to again to parenting. You understand? Because if in a woman, if in a house where there's authority that's being pushed on to a certain gender as compared to the other, because there's a systemic application to this, we as a people, and we'll talk about this eventually, but it connotes to what the style of parenting begins to take place in a house and what the outcome of those children will eventually look like. Because if
Dr. Aluya, again, that is another subject. It's huge. You always have this trouble. It's good trouble. But you started another one right in the middle of one that we are still trying to tweak. So we keep telling you, two of us have been trying to tell you, would you please stop? This is good trouble. You got to stop though.
No, but I think at the end of it all,
Dr.
at the end of it all,
we're coming back. No, wait. Dr. Aluya.
We must begin to take steps. It's to providing answers. And that's what we're here. And what are those answers?
We will. The problem is we have a lot of questions in the forum that has to do with the topic of today. We have a hand raised that has to do with the topic of today. This is another topic that we have to address. It's a very important one. But you've got to know that you're surrounded by powerful women, and you being president of NAPAC you will know that we still treat you as the head.
Oh, yes, I know. You
So
guys are
you got to
amazing.
give us
You're
that.
my darling.
But you know what? We decided to leave you today. We're coming back to get you. And you're trying to run. You're trying to run with this topic right now. We're not going to let you. We're coming back to it on another day, and we will get you good. Because guess what? While you are right, you have not correctly represented all of us. So it's a learning forum. We have to properly address it so that the women who have not learned and who don't have the wisdom to know where their place is need to learn it and to know. You are very right. You're right on the money. A man is stripped of that head in the household, it negatively impacts the children. I don't care how you slice it. So that's a topic we would address. Mr. or Mrs. Kadiri, please ask your question. It's Dr. Aluya. He started another kind of one. Kindly unmute and ask your question. I'm trying to unmute you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, this is Dr. Kadiri Adhd. I am really interested. I'm amazed by the conversation that is being had. And I'm a millennial, part of the kids, the child that you guys are talking about. I grew up here.
Dr. Kadiri.
Yes, Dr. O, how are you?
My newfound son. I'm doing well. Go ahead. I think it was.
So yes, I hear the story now. I'm a parent. I grew up here, came here, have parents, raised me. Now I'm a parent. So I'm trying as much as possible to say, from what everybody have said, do you think the new surviving system, I call it the new surviving system from both females and male, and meaning we're not being taught a proper parenting because our parents were out there working hard to make sure that we become doctors, lawyers, and tech, fintech, everything that we wanted to be to achieve the American dream. And now, at the same time, we have to have kids. At the same parents want grandparents. Now, we are forced, or not forced, I've not used the word forced, but somehow, I know a lot of our millennials going through that phase whereby they reach 36 or 30 something, they wonder, oh, I haven't had a child yet, I need a child. But not knowing how to actually have a parent, how to actually parent a child, or how to actually be a good parent. So from the panel on the table, from everybody on this list, I heard that you guys have grown, have a different perspective of what parenting is, but you learn to parent at one point, and then we are now in a culture whereby we were never taught to parent, but yet we were taught to succeed. How do you correlate those three topics of the day? Learn to correlate the idea of we having difficulty in parenting, and at the same time have to succeed, go to school and achieve those things that Dr. Nancy had said, so we don't disappoint our parents.
Excellent question. But guess what? My dear Dr. Kadiri, nobody taught us how to parent. That's why we're here talking about it. And one of the reasons for this conversation is that we want to impart what we have learned that has been beneficial, what we have learned that we did that were not beneficial, and to assist people like you, our children, to raise our grandchildren properly. You two, you're coming on the forum with our children, because you are our children, so that you can give us more perspective and we can assist more. We don't want you to make the mistakes that we made, and at the same time we want to continue learning. But I didn't answer your question. deeply is the in-depth. I'm going to have Dr. V, she has her hand raised, and then Dr. Craig will go after her because I know they want to tackle your question.
Yeah, real quickly, Dr. Kadiri, you're absolutely 100% right. But the good news is that human beings evolve. We learned from our parents the way to survive, and we thrived by the strength that they gave us on the general. And then we transferred as much as we can, because those values that helped you to be successful. But in the process, lots of research, either by research that we learned or by we having experimented, learned a lot that we could do differently. A concrete example is we didn't teach most of our children the spoken language because we were told that we were confusing them at the onset. And so that later research, because the research at the time said, no, don't speak the other language, just speak English so they don't get confused. And then as the children got older, research said, oh no, you should actually teach home language. Then we started a little late, but now we've been trying to correct what we've learned, but even more so, we're going to co-parent with you. And I see that with many of my friends that already have grandchildren, that we've learned, so we're co-parenting. And part of the co-parenting is this kind of a platform where we're learning together. It's a journey, it's a process, but co-parenting is the way now. I teach, for example, my language on Saturdays for free, a website that's free. So we are learning and learning right along with you. So we think that the outcome will be better, and we're learning more of the biases and the racism in the system, the systemic racism. So more and more it's becoming evident. The reteaching our children, reteaching our own history from our own perspective of what we know. Finding out the game that's been played throughout history, of breaking down a family by chopping off the head of the house. And now we now know what the game is. And then when you break off the head, then don't give help. Then it becomes more critical that we learn what the games are and begin to build our own paths to building a better future and a stronger non-white world. So that's my response.
Thank you so much. Dr. Craig?
Dr. Kadiri, thank you for your question. Dr. O's point is absolutely fantastic. We were not taught to be parents. We learned as we went from day to day, hour to hour. What we were taught from our parents was we were given a moral structure. Now, it was conveyed in some form of fashion to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. In our teaching of you as our child, we look to convey that. So whatever you were challenged with in your growing, you knew what was right or what was wrong, and then you conveyed that to your children. That's what we tried to do. That's what we are still trying to do as grandparents. So there are no simple lessons or books that you can buy which can tell you whether you turn left or turn right with your child. If you have that a moral foundation, I promise you will succeed in bringing your child forth to be the best person they can be. And then you feed them with various structural things like education, vocations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my response to your question.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. God bless you. Pastor Mrs. Mayowa Fawole, she's one of our panelists. Please take a stab at it.
Yeah, so my brother, God bless you. So as we've been talking, we've said a lot of things, and I just want to respond to your question a little bit, and even to Dr. Aluya. So we were talking about all these things that is going on. One of the things that we have learned that we now recognize, that we realize, is that modern parenting is flexible, as opposed to traditional parenting that is rigid and, kind of rule-based. But now we know that the focus should be on nurturing our children to be involved in their lives, allowing children to express their own individuality very freely. So those are some of the things. And I also want to add that we should be proud of who we are. A lot of us, we try to hide our identity, and we're not even teaching our children about their own history. And in order to combat this social injustice that is going on, first of all, we need to know who we are. And our kids need to be proud of who they are. I know my own children, they all, sometimes they complain about you name them with, Nigerian names and nobody can say it in their school. And Mom, my name is too long. My first child's name is Oluakpo. Mom, nobody can say that name. Why you name me Oluakpo? Nobody can say it. I say, Oluakpo, you should be proud of your name. This is what it means. That means you're unique. And for us as parents, and I mean, I'm not against people, if you name a child different names, but that's part of what it is. And because if you're not on the table, you are part of the menu. So it is important that we get involved. And one of the ways to get involved is to know your children's teacher, not when the child gets in trouble, but even from the onset, you let the teacher know somebody loves this child. He may be Black, or she may be, really, really dark in complexion, but somebody loves her. And once that is there and we're getting involved, we're participating in what is going on, you understand what they're learning in school, we will be able to identify the injustices that might be going on so we can address it. I guess I'll stop there for now.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for taking it, further home. Thank you. Dr. Kadiri, that's a huge case. This is what we're talking about, and we'll continue to dialogue and learn more. On the forum, I must say this. Dr. Aluya, I told you, you create good problems because a whole load of people in the chat box said they agree with Dr. Aluya. My sister Kehinde says she's a mother, a wife, and a daughter, and she agrees. Dr. Etty said, this is the reality of some of them, and it is important that you are right on the money. I mean, the list goes on and on. People are applauding Dr. Aluya. We're going to come back to address that issue on another day. I said it. Madam VP said it too. Double standard of parenting. The women power, is it? Or what? We're going to address it. But I'm trying my best to stay focused on this parenting thing. And it's difficult because my attention to now is divided on, the role of the woman who lack wisdom. Because that is exactly what is the reality in some homes, and what Dr. Aluya is alluding to, which is very true. It's a children's destroyer. I'm going to call on Pastor Onigbinde. Do you have an input? Do you have something to say to Dr. Kadiri before I go to Dr. Ajagbe's comments on racism?
Oh, thank you, Dr. O. Well, I just want to say that we have to encourage young parents like Dr. Kadiri. I agree that we were not, taught how to parent by our parents in affirmative ways, but I also disagree because, look, the way children are taught is not just like somebody, have a chalkboard and then begin to write, and we were onlookers. And that is why what Dr. Aluya said, even though he went so much ahead of us, is really relevant. Look, if you want to fight the battle outside, you have to win the battle inside. when home is divided, it's really hard for you to win outside. Whatever be about racism, whatever, ism. But when your dad is divided, the parents are divided, and now how are you gonna? You're not even gonna. You're not going to even realize that there are children that need your help. And so, in other words, what I want to say is that there are things that I saw with my parents parenting me that I came out and thought to myself, look, we're not putting parents on trial here. Where we came from, they said, well, if you think your parents are not rich, you wait. You're too impatient. When it comes to your turn, you see how easy it is to make it. But at the end of the day, you have to come to that point where you know that, when we are thinking seriously about effective parenting, there are so many dynamics. But I think there's also the significance of, a marital unity, a marital stability, father being their place, mother being their place, everybody knowing their roles and all that is really relevant. And then you can I remember my little child, somebody said something racist to him. And when he ran away from what was said to him, he ran home. And we caught him and we said, hey, sit down. You are handsome. You are good. You're going to, you are not what they say you are. You can be, imagine that child ran home and there's no one home. Or maybe the parents are fighting and they don't even know, And so all of that is going to affect, the welfare of the child. So what I want to say to Dr. Kadri is that there are things that you probably will have learned from your home parents that you want to change. There are things that you also have to, teach yourself and all that. But the real issue also is for us to understand something that I want to inject to the discourse is that there's an element of divine sovereignty and personal responsibility. Divine sovereignty is that if I am talking to you as a parent now, you need to understand that I shouldn't be here. If everything that my parents did were to be, if there's no other option, if there's no one else, that won't be a way that I will be, I will turn out better. Because everything that I saw and everything that I learned, whatever they do, the best that they did, will have made me, if I have to follow their steps, I won't marry one wife. Probably I won't, I will go through all of the outcome of their choices because I also make the same choice that they make. So, in other words, I think there's the element of God also helping me to say, hey, I don't want, and I've seen children also come to me here telling me, hey, Pastor, I don't want to be a parent like my dad. I don't want to be a parent like my mom. In other words, there's something that they're learning, even when their parents are not teaching, writing things on the chalkboard for them, they are watching, children are learning by what they see, and there are things that you take away and you say, hey, you know what, I don't want that. Or there are things you, oh, I like that. And then you had to that. And then God helping you. There are things that even whatever it is that they have done that God can make you to do better and turn it around, and then you turn out well. But it's really important for us to understand that coming close to God and asking for, because we all need help. We are very needy people. And it's really important for us to understand that, there are no perfect parenting because there are no perfect parents. But we have to come close to a place where, God can help us. And then we something about being rational, something about applying rationale. I mean, there are things that the odds are stacked against us, but we don't need to have to the odds. And part of what Dr. Aluya said is that, look, if you want to fight this battle, racism and all of that, why is it that, how do you think you can effectively fight it? When you as a parent, you are divided. Everything is in disarray. You're talking about divorce. You're talking about, the wife has become husband. The husband now is wife, and all of that will affect children. Now, at the end of the day, those children have been parenting. They are being parented, but even when no one is writing anything on the chalkboard for them, they are learning because they are learning. They are being taught from the lives of their parents. There are ways that we teach our parents, but not just what we tell them, but what we do. How we carry on. Maybe in the realm of marriage and, that they see and it affects them.
Thank you so much. I have a question for you, sir. you come from a home where your dad have more than one wife?
I don't want to exaggerate, but I was a Muslim, and if I remember correctly, if you want to number the wives that my father had, you probably wouldn't need that extra hand. And I'm talking about, and I think the things fell apart after my mother. It was basically, okay, as soon as, the one that he married as a maiden, he got tired of her and had let her go. And now, got married to somebody who had 2 children now. That one came, that left. Children, I saw women, one after the other, one woman. You're talking to someone who at the point I thought, I don't think I'm going to get married, because if this is the way it's going to be, if this is the way it turns out, and I'm looking at the person that is closest to me, the one that I love, the one that I respect so much, the one that the first teacher for me, my dad. And I, look at him and I say, no, if it turned out this way for him, I don't want to get married. But so the person you're looking at now is not, the product of his parents in a sense, but the product of God. That I have stayed married to one woman for 32 years. That's not what my dad taught me. Not in an affirmative way, not in looking at his own life. So in other words, there is something that we need to pay attention to about the God factor and how God can actually step in. But it doesn't mean that it take away from our personal responsibility too. We have to do what we have to do. If you depend on God and God wants to help you, you ask God for help. But if you're a woman and you say, oh, God, I need you to help me, you will still have to be a good wife to your husband. God will not be the wife to your husband. If you're a man and you say, God, I need you to help me as a father or as a husband, God will say, okay, do it this way and do it that way. But you know what? You're still going to have to be the father to your children and the husband to your wife. God will not do that. Come down and say, hey. So in other words, we take what we learn from God and then we apply, personal responsibility by, and we are responsible to our response. We are responsible for our response. If we say, oh, this is what I want, and we know that is right, and we seek help from Dr. Hall, from Dr. Aluya, and then we go away and we go, with all of those counsel, and then we also take it from what is good, what is right, what God has said. We put all of that together, and then it is now something personal. It is something that you now have to personally apply. And so that is why, the element of divine sovereignty, how God can help us, even when our context is contrary and our situation is untowardly, but also the element of personal responsibility, whereby I know that, okay, now, God, you want me to be the head for my wife and good father to my children. I hear you. And now I'm going to go back and do that. And then that's how, so there's so many dynamics here. And that is why, we shouldn't blame Dr. Aluya for getting so well ahead of us. Because, because
no, let me tell you something. You don't know Dr. Aluya yet. He's a pace setter. That's who the Lord has made him. He can't help himself. He can't help it. That's who he is.
Yeah.
He's a pace setter.
I see that. I see him as a good troublemaker.
Yeah.
So, in all sincerity, I put a medical twist to what you said, and I'm glad. I was just thinking and ruminating when you were saying, and all the dynamics of what people were saying. And I'll begin by saying this: with freedom comes responsibility, but that responsibility also gives you the capacity and the access to knowledge. Now, what are you going to do with that knowledge that you acquired? And that's the responsibility that is most important. But before I go into the nitty-gritty of what I'm saying, and I'll say it this way, no matter how bad the drought is in the forest, a lion will never eat grass. The lion would rather die of starvation. But what does that mean? It means the lioness or the male lion that do not teach the cub how to hunt is expecting that cub to die of starvation. because that cow will never eat grass. It's not in the DNA, period. So
Mm.
when you talked about, learning from your parents, you may not have formal instruction. And if you guys remember when I gave statistics, 30% of the time I spent in school, 80-something percent, 70-something percent is spent at home. Now, that's the biggest factor that drives what a child will turn out to be. And that's where the parenting and the style of parenting comes into play. We have all the dynamics of what's going on and everything else. In all 7 styles, you need to understand what style of parenting you are and how to organize yourself to a point where it suits your partner or who you're with. But in as much as we say these things, we also remember that people who are single parents as well. And that people who are single parents and come from different dimensions and different areas. Now, coming to the medical twist of what you're saying, your dad, based on what he did, based on the knowledge that he had and the environment upon which you grew up, the fact that you became a Christian and not a Muslim, and you are where you are today to succeed, it's not just by accident. There's something still he imbibed in you, whether you like it or not. You learned something. Because one of the things that we've always talked about in our parenting our children here, we all grew up. I know my dad loved me. He was a soldier man, a military dude and all that. I know he loved me. But did he ever tell me one day that I love you, son? No, he didn't. And I'm sure most of the parents here never heard that from their parents. But they know their parents love them. Now, coming to that, why are they not telling those things? Either because they inherited something. And with those inheritance, they are good and they are bad. And guess what? The bad ones are called baggages. A lot of men and women carry baggages all around. And those baggages they bring into the relationship, into their husband, into their family as well. And sometimes they don't know how to drop those baggages and influence and affect a whole lot of things that are happening and how they parent and the style upon which they parent. So we must begin to address that. Look, I'll give you a typical medical issue. ADHD. If you look at a child who has ADHD and they grow up to become adults, those tendencies of restlessness do not stop. And where we come from, they beat the restlessness out of you or they beat the ADHD out of you because they feel that's the cure. But here, we talk about medicating those children. But guess what? One of the biggest resistance that we get in our environment is the resistance of putting those children on medications. I had to deal with one last week. And the mother called, I'm not even their pediatrician. The mother called me because I told her, I'm like, doc, this is what they said my child had ADHD and all that. And I had to take him from there because I was angry and pissed off. I took the child somewhere else. I said, listen, did they evaluate? Yes. Did they what? I said, look, let me tell you this, and I'll be very frank with you. I gave examples of the ones that I've had to take care of and treat, and these children are doing phenomenally well. I said, look, if you do not put that child on medication right now, it's up. Look, the person who's doing this, whether there's an agenda or no agenda, the primary aim and intent right now is for your child. Now, for children who have ADHD, it's not their fault. It's an impulse. It's firing far more than anybody else on anything else, and they can't control it. Now, for you to control that, you have to put them on medication. And I made her understand, during school times, put them on medication so that they can sit down and sit in class and concentrate and learn. Because
they can even take weekend holidays. They can take weekend holidays.
Right, on the weekends or holidays, they're off the meds. Because if that child cannot sit and learn right now, the next thing you see is opposition defiant tendency, then juvenile delinquency, and then into other crimes that eventually come up. But if that child, by the sheer strength and power and grace of God, has been able to adjust and move through, look, it will show itself eventually sometime. I've had PhD students who come to their parents and say, Dad, I need help. I need medication. I've had people, doctors, they come to meet me and they've adjusted all the, but it gets to a point, it's a break point, they can't adjust it anymore.
Yeah.
And you'll be shocked. These are professionals.
Yeah.
And they understand these things are beginning to affect their life.
And it is okay.
And know that. So these are some of the, and these are baggage. So if that individual carries that baggage into a relationship and the wife or the partner does not understand it, it goes haywire. And things begin to get problems. And that's why counseling is good. That's why it's good to come sit and have a network, a support system where you can make references to, where you can talk to. You have a mentor. Look, we talked about mentorship the other day. You can have a marriage mentor. You don't have to be a counselor, because now we don't like to go to counseling. We don't. It's not in our nature. You understand? You can have a mentor in marriage. You can have in career. You can have a mentor in finances. It's not just in one area alone. And I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a counselor here.
No.
Rosemary, you raised your hand.
I did before.
Dr. Aluya blew you off the water.
He did. Thank you all the panelists. You've done a great job. I've been listening and I've been enjoying everything. So what I want to say is that, what if we, the children, the young adults now, what if they go for counseling to take care of themselves before going into marriage? All these problems will be, will be solved. Because a lot of people just go into marriages without even knowing who they are. There's identity crisis going on right now. A lot of they are very, very insecure. They have low self-esteem. They don't know who they are. I mean, so much. And then these people go and get married, and then before you know it, they're having children.
Lawan, I thought you were talking. I was going to say, Miss Lawan,
Dr. V. Go ahead.
If you have learned how to take care of yourself, how can you take care of your children, bringing up kids? A lot of people need to be reparented, so to speak. I have a friend of mine, and she, her daughter and everything. I was like, I said, you know what? You need to bring your daughter back home and reparent her. Today she's thanking me. She said, oh my goodness, Sister Rosemary, I cannot believe this. There's so much I did not know about my daughter. I said, babe, before you know that, you need to come into counseling. She came to my office and I worked with her. So you have to remove the log in your eye before you can see the speck in somebody else's eyes. Yes, you have to do that. So it's a lot. Dr. Aluya, I can see your passion about this thing, because
I know.
Because you don't even know where to start from. There are some families whereby I have to sit the woman down and say, you know what, the man, you have to start treating this man as your boss, and the man has lost his authority in that house. I have to work with the man and then work with the woman, make sure that you bring peace into the house so that the kids can come out right. Otherwise, there will be a lot of issues in the future. I tell them, I say, look, right now you can tell your children what to do, but there's going to be a point whereby the children are going to be resisting your authority. So may God help us. We have a lot of work to do.
Amen. Thank you. So I have another counselor on the forum, Dr. Lee Omira. Why don't you unmute and say something before I go to the chat box? Unmute. She's shy, but she's an amazing counselor.
Well, hello everyone. Everything was very good. Dr. Aluya, he's just awesome. I love hearing him speak. I think everyone on the panel was very good. And just one comment that I would like to bring in perspective is that we had to remind our younger ones that quality time with our children. I don't care if you're working, whatever you're doing, but family time, quality time is so very important. And to keep that communication going. And even though, we had to remind them that working and doing things that we have to do, but we have to come together as a family and just do family things again. If it's not eating at the table or whatever it takes, family time, quality time is very important. And exactly, starting young and just keeping that throughout our children's lives is very, very important. That's basically that's one thing that I noticed, that quality time, you just can't get away from that. I don't care what we're doing, and we have to remind our young adults that that is important.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate you. So and thank you, my darling sis Rosemary, for all you do for me and everyone I've sent to you to assist me with. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are comments on the forum. If you have time, please go through them. Miss Candice Guy, I just love the comments that I read here. Says, love was shown by what they did for their children: food, shelter, clothing, education, working hard for those things to make sure the children were taken care of. Yes, but that quality time, the education, the bonding time is very important, and that's missing and it's causing problems. Things don't replace proper parenting.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we have to take our eyes off those things. Necessities, needs, food, shelter, clothing, but everything else, those are things. Quality time, please, is important. My sis Grace Obebe said, yes, parents are the first Bible that children see and read to interpret their world and define who they are in that world until they start upgrading the ideas of their peers in teenage years. Absolutely, we talked about that earlier. She nailed it on the head. But Ms. Candy still has a lot to say. Dr. Ajay said, Dr. Ephraim, kids are always watching. Do not worry that children never listen to you. Worry that they are always watching you. Be your best to be a good role model for the next generation. Absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because what parents do in moderation, again, I say all
Mhm.
the time, children are going to do in excess. And, as Candice Guy said again, yes, we learn through what we see. And then as we grow and become parents, we can either repeat the cycle or know better and do better. We've seen examples tonight. We saw Pastor Onigbinde, who decided that he was not going to be a polygamist like his father, that he was going
Yeah.
to one wife, love her. And by the way, he has amazing children. I know his children. I went to the wedding of one of them about 2-3 weeks ago. Amazing children. Parents do their best that they can with the knowledge they have. Some parents, so I agree with that one, but some. And she also says grandparents are a great support. It does take a village, and some grandparents are trying to right their wrongs through their grandchildren. There isn't a playbook to parenting, so it's by experience. That is so, so true. A lot of us are in that truth, and we're trying to do that. And Sister Lara said, the truth is that it is hard to separate these topics. They are all intertwined. We cannot talk about one without visiting the other in the same breath. And so, again, back to Dr. Aluya. Sister Lola, I stand corrected. You're right. I just was trying to, get to the questions to address the concerns of people like Dr. Kadiri. So thank you. I stand corrected. Dr. Ajagbe, if you please unmute and ask your question, if you put it together and ask it, that would be great. Thank you. And there are lots of comments appreciating all the panelists, that every single one is just totally awesome. Lots of comments on the platform for that. Dr. Adhd, thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for the panelists for your participation and collective wisdom of the panelists. I think there is no end to this discussion, really, because there are many aspects to what is supposed to be addressed here. However, I'm not going to be asking any more questions because there's a lot that have been said. The comments I've written and suggestions I've made, I'm sure the panelists have taken note of those. Since the panel is not being dissolved, I'm sure there will be some time that some of those things will be addressed.
Thank you so much, sir. And yes, and I noticed that Dr. V actually answered a lot of your questions. She is amazing. Dr. V is incredible. Dr. Aluya, I'm going to give it back to you. Any comments?
Well, I will say thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity again. And it's great to see all the number of people who tuned in. Because it's important. It's important, we come together and have this kind of discussions. Discussions that would lead to, providing some form of solution or a roadmap or template in varying forms so that we begin to push that on as well. I've said before that there's an African adage that says, if you hear good news, you listen with both ears. So I hope a lot of people have listened with 2 ears, and not just listen, but you also go on to be an advocate as well. And that's why we're having this discussion. So that when somebody comes to you, we've talked before in other series, we don't have enough counselors in our community. We don't have enough psychiatrists. We don't have enough of anything. So when you hear good news and hear stuff, please go out and share with people. And if they don't know, make them references. Give them, say, you know what? You can reach out to Dr. O. If you can't reach Dr. Aluya, you can reach out to Dr. Rosemary Ufoegbune, because that's why we're here. You understand? So that we can begin to talk to one another and say, you know what? We have, Dr. Lee, who has huge resources in our community as well that you can talk to. So that we together will raise the children and the future that we'll be comfortable with. And we'll also create that future for them that we know we're assured that they can thrive in. And that's why we're having this discussion. And hopefully, who knows what will come out of this? Maybe there'll be a podcast, with this same team, with Dr. Rosemary on board, Dr. Lee, and everybody, Dr. Adhd, who have begin to have a podcast. So we begin to talk about these issues in our community and raise our children in a format, and not just raising them, but pointing them in the direction of what's to come. I talked about analogy of the lion and all that, because if we don't teach our children these things, how do we expect them to be able to survive and even thrive in society and the future that's to come?
Thank you.
And I hope at the end of it all, everybody's living with a message, and that message will go on to spread the message. So we'll all be bigger, better, and more functional. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you know what? We're living with that message.
Yeah.
To bless others. And this brings us to Medical Mondays with Dr. O, and I'm doing something a little bit different tonight. Dr. Adhd alluded to a young man, Mr. Gbenga Ogunji. Mr. Gbenga Ogunjimi, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
So this is one of ours who is partnering with NAPAC, Nigerian American Political Action, Political Affairs Committee, I'm sorry. And I am the chair of 5 states, by the way: Virginia, DC, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. Can you imagine? So he's partnering with us, and is part of NAPAC, one of our newest now, because it's starting a cultural center that would help Nigerians who just come to the US. I'm going to have him say a few words because we want all of you to be present on April 27th, virtually, when the opening of the center would be. Benga, take it and roll with it.
Thank you, Dr. O, and thank you to the amazing panelists for the words of wisdom and your thought leadership on parenting. It feels like a masterclass on steroids. I've been taking a lot of notes. I'm a new father myself. I'm in a blended, I call it blended cultural relationship. My wife is African American, so we are truly raising an African American. So when I look at my journey in the United States, very recently, my transition has been somewhat smooth, but I cannot say the same for members of our community who struggle with adjusting and achieving self-sufficiency in the United States. My background is in philanthropy, international development, equity, and impact, a lot of financial inclusion work, professional background, I mean. And that gave me opportunity to see how other communities utilize this model of immigrant and cultural centers to help empower their community. We know that the Jewish communities, the Chinese communities have had cultural centers dating over 100 years in the United States. So we are over a century late in the Nigerian American community to have our own center. And as we know, the Nigerian American is very entrepreneurial, and our culture kind of parallels the American culture in some ways. So we figure out the system. You probably hear my little one in the background. His name is Adhd, means the king is here. So he's trying to get his voice heard. So as I was saying, because of our Nigerianness, we figure out the system. So we elevate personal success. But our culture, the culture in America requires it. It promotes individualism. And so gradually we kind of losing track to that cultural sense of that communal sense. So that is the reason why I decided to take the leadership and start the Nigerian Immigrant and Cultural Center that is going to serve both who are newly arrived immigrants from Nigeria or for other Nigerian diaspora communities to the United States to help navigate the complexities of the American system. Because I know it is even complex for everyday American, let alone immigrants. And the cultural piece, the new generations like the Adhd, and even with the Afrobeat generation, we've been growing in allies of the culture, those who want to, and the leadership of Ghana. A lot of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora are trying to connect to the Nigerian culture. So we thought there should be a center that both serve newly arrived immigrant, first generation, and even the global ally of the Nigerian American culture. So on the 27th is when we officially open our doors and our programs as well to the public. I'm so thankful to cross path with NAPAC. For the past days, I have known them every single day. My world has been filled with NAPAC now. There's no day that I don't have some form of interaction with NAPAC since my connection with this dynamic organization. And I want to thank your leadership for what you're doing. And in my research, other communities eventually come to the political, and it seems that is where we are starting. So that is an asset. Thank you, Dr. O. I hope to see everyone 27th. If you want to register for the event, if you can go to nigeriancenter.org/events. you can register for the event. So thank you once again. I thank you for this opportunity, Dr. O and everyone.
You're very welcome. I will shoot this out by email if you like to register to attend, and also on WhatsApp. I'll shoot that link out to everybody. And if you didn't get it, please contact me. And join NAPAC. I have on the forum, the website that you can go to learn more about NAPAC and join NAPAC. If somebody said in the conversation we had tonight that if you're not at the table, you'll be eating. You'll be eating on the table. So that's what NAPAC is about. That's what NAPAC changes. We work hard to be at the table, to put you at the table, to get our generation to be at the table so that we don't eat crumbs. So you can contact me, Dr. Aluya, Dr. Veronica, Madam VP, any of us to talk more about NAPAC. We have on the forum, Mr. Okusanya from California, Mr. Taidoati. I don't even know if they're there. I'm sure they're there. I just know for a fact that they're there, and you can contact any of us to talk more about it. So I want to also mention that we have shared information with you. We are not establishing care. We are not establishing physician-patient relationship. We are just here to impact positively and to enact growth in all dimensions that we're able. And next week, stay tuned. We are not dissolving this panel. We still have a lot to discuss. Thanks to Dr. Aluya. We're very excited that, I'm excited. And you'll be wondering, why is she excited? These are problems, the problems that we're solving. That's what we do as physicians. If we ever go to the hospital and doctors are calling residents and students to come look at something in you, it's a bad thing for you, but excellent for us. We get excited at anomalies, at problems, because we look at it to resolve it, to solve it. And we will continue to dialogue on this panel. If you have young adults that you will want to participate when we do bring the young adults on, please let me know so that we can bring them on. And if you have any suggestions on where this should go, or you yourself have much to say or contribute, contact me and we'll make it happen. Thank you so much. And till we meet next week, have a blessed night. Happy Easter Monday.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Great job.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Happy Easter all.
Everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.